Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Clear here with a knife video for you. And today I actually want to not talk about a specific knife, but like I've done before with a couple others, I want to talk about a company, and that company is Cold Steel. If you're even a little bit familiar with knives, you've probably heard of Cold Steel. If you've watched any YouTube videos about knives, you've probably seen some of those crazy Cold Steel advertising videos. They call them the sharpest or strongest, sharpest knives. And you know, their claims are always over the top, and their videos are always over the top, and so that has caused in the knife community a little bit of a dichotomy, a separation, where it's like you love or hate Cold Steel knives because they make these crazy claims. And I can imagine if you're out there and you're the competition, if you're a Benchmade or a Spyderco or a Charade or CRKT or any number of other companies, you're going, these guys are kind of being jerks because my such and such a knife is every bit as strong or every bit as sharp or whatever. Okay, so I totally understand the frustration, but I want to talk about this company in a positive light. One, because I think what they do in their advertising and in their demonstration videos says a lot about the strength and quality of the knives that they make. They take those things and just beat the snot out of them. And they cut all kinds of things that you and I will probably never have to cut in a regular EDC tasks, but it's nice to know that you could if you needed to, right? And isn't that what many of us carry a knife for, right? Just in case one of those crazy outlandish situations comes up that we're not expecting, but we would like to be ready for if it happens. And in the meantime, we know we've always got a great tool for, you know, opening mail, preparing food, cutting cardboard, cutting rope, all those things that you got to go through in terms of cutting tasks through the day. And so, you know, I wanted to comment on the advertising right away because that seems to be one of the things that draws a lot of negative publicity toward Cold Steel. And now I can go and talk about the knives because I think whatever, you know, claims they make and however over the top they may be, one of the things we have to say about Cold Steel is they do put together a pretty good knife. I know it's not made in the US. I know that, you know, there are things that people complain about, could be maybe better blade steel or whatever, right? The Teflon coating is my biggest complaint. I actually really like Aus 8 steel. I really like G10, but I hate their Teflon coating. Okay, so I'm right there with you when there are complaints that we could level. However, having said all that, in this video, I actually want to talk about what I like about Cold Steel because I think there is a lot to like. And I'm going to talk about it in a couple of different sort of categories. The first category is one that goes all by itself and is found in so many Cold Steel knives. It's in this knife, this knife, this knife. Look at the back, and you can see that separation of a stop pin between the lock bar and the blade tang. And we're talking about the Triad lock. That Triad lock is an ingenious improvement upon, here's one more to give you a really giant example, great improvement upon the traditional lock back. And so you can see, here's the way this thing functions. You have a little slot there in the tang of the knife, and this lock bar has a tooth on it. And as you open this up, the tooth falls in. Now, in a traditional lockback, that's all that's happening. That falls in, and that keeps this from going anywhere or doing anything. However, in the Triad lock, there's the addition of this stop pin. And the stop pin means that forces that are placed on this knife, either horizontal or vertical, are transferred either directly to the stop pin and then into the frame of the knife, or through the lock bar this way into the stop pin. And so no matter what you do, you're not able to exert any direct force on the locking mechanism. It moves all the force into the frame of the knife, which is much, much stronger. It's a whole big system. And so the Triad lock is just a fantastic locking mechanism, a super, super good idea. And Andrew Demko deserves a lot of credit for it. And I just love that lockup. And you know, knives like this, Cold Steel Code 4, one of the things that makes it so awesome is that in what is a very sleek, classy, almost gentleman's folder, you have this big, beefy, super hard use lock and blade that, you know, even though it's sort of a gentleman's knife, you could take this thing into the woods, you could take it into the field of combat, you could take it into a mechanic shop or a construction site, wherever you want, and do whatever you want with it, and it's going to hold up because partially of that Triad lock, and then generally because of Cold Steel's approach to knife construction, which is, let's make this thing into a big, strong beast of a knife. And so I absolutely love that about Cold Steel. You know, if you got a Cold Steel knife, even a lower cost knife like the Voyager, it's going to be strong. It's going to be overbuilt. You're not going to break it, or only under extreme duress. And I know there's a video of Cutlery Lover breaking a Recon 1, that is this knife, not with the same blade shape. But it's interesting that in Cutlery Lover's video, what breaks is the blade, not the G10 handle, and not the lock. And so that ought to tell you something. It's that strong that you'll actually break your blade off before that lock fails. Now, I know they can fail, and of course this way the blade is going to be much stronger, and I've seen videos where people have loaded Cold Steel knives until they fail. And so they can fail, they're not fixed blades, but man, you are getting an exceptionally good lock when you get a Cold Steel knife. Especially, obviously you want to qualify that by making sure it's got the Triad lock. Now, that brings me to one of the complaints that is often leveled, and that is they're too similar. There's too much repetition in Cold Steel. And part of that, I think, is because there's not a general knowledge of the blades that are out there. You know, obviously the Recon 1 is very popular, and so there's a lot of them out there. The AK-47 is pretty popular. The American Lawman is pretty popular. And those three knives are similar, okay? You've got black G10, you've got Aus-8 steel, you've got a blade here that's covered in a black Teflon coating, you got a Triad lock. And so, yes, I can understand why some people say, well, do something different. Well, they actually do some things different. One, you know, there's the Code 4, which is an exceptional knife. You know, I honestly think this is one of the contenders for the best everyday carry knife out there. Then you've got the Voyager. What could be more different than that? I mean, there aren't too many folding knives at all that come in this size. And by the way, I think that Triad lock is one of the things that allows for a knife of this size because of that extra strength. And then we haven't even considered the Espada and the Tylite and a bunch of other Cold Steel knives that we could talk about. So the first thing that we've got to say we love about Cold Steel knives is the Triad lock. The second thing we've got to say about Cold Steel knives is this marriage of practicality and character. And what I mean by character is, you know, they've got these big, beefy, you know, slightly novelty granted knives like this one, like the Espada XL, even like the standard size Espada. It's very flashy. It's a very out there knife. I actually am waiting, but I really want to add to my collection a large Espada in G10. I'm not a fan of the silver bolster on it and stuff like that, but the G10 Espada looks really cool, and I'm pretty interested in that one. But there's this good marriage of usefulness and practicality. You know, any one of these knives is going to deal with almost any situation you can think of and do it pretty well. Now, I would say some of these blade shapes are more suited to different things. You know, we could identify that for sure, and I wouldn't argue that some blade shapes are more suited for certain tasks than others. However, one of the cool things about most Cold Steel knives is they can flex into a lot of different uses. You know, I would say this is primarily an everyday carry knife. However, could it be a tactical knife? Could it be a bushcraft knife? Could it be a hunting knife? Could it be a fishing knife? Could it do warehouse work? Could it be on a construction site? You know, I think it could do all of those things. Could it do them all as well as the American Lawman? Maybe not. I would say the Lawman would surpass it because of blade shape in skinning, so a better hunting knife. Is it as good a tactical knife as the Recon 1? No. But what I'm saying is when you have any one of these, so what about the Recon 1? Could you EDC it? Yeah. So one of the things that I really like about cold steel is a wide range of usefulness, really practical, really utilitarian approach to knife making. And so I really, really like that. Now, I know they're made overseas, but lots of companies make knives overseas, even, the favorite Spyderco, and Benchmade, of course, has the H&K line that's made overseas. Kershaw, everything they make is overseas, with the exception of ZT. And I mean, I know there's some Kershaws made in the US, but a lot of their popular knives, all of the CQC series, the Emerson collab, that's all overseas. So you can't really pick on a knife company for having an overseas production because they all do it. Coming back to the practicality and flair that comes together really nicely in cold steel. When they do these videos where they pound the crap out of these knives, again, that's a demonstration of these two characteristics. They're showing you how well this knife works and how well it performs even in really bad situations. And yeah, they take it over the top. They do. But that same sort of over-the-top approach is one of the things that gives us a knife that I really like my Cold Steel Voyager. What company would make this knife other than Cold Steel, right? It's just too big to be practical. It's too crazy. And so I appreciate that Cold Steel is willing to do something like that. I appreciate all the weapons they make. I don't collect swords or machetes or axes or all those kinds of things, so I don't have a lot of those. But even in those, it's nice that there's a company out there that's making a sword that you can actually chop stuff with. There's tons of these art swords that are just for hanging on the wall. But man, you buy a Cold Steel sword and you can actually use it to chop stuff, which is pretty cool. I like that idea, right? So practicality combined with flair, practicality combined with character is another one of the things that I like about Cold Steel. Now, I will say there is a negative side to this, and they could go a little further. I'm going to pick on the Recon 1, super, super popular knife. Everyone loves this knife. And so since it's so popular, what about offering it in a different blade steel? Since it's so popular, what about offering different colors of G10? I mean, it's G10, right? You can get it in practically any color you can think of. And wouldn't that be cool to get your Recon 1 in olive drab or coyote tan, or even some kind of, the paramilitary 2 comes in digital camo. Or what about doing, I know this is a little Spyderco-esque, but what about doing, brightly colored ones? Now, they've started doing that, and I know in the Mini Recon 1, which I keep in my car and use it for opening all those things that I'm trying to get open when I don't want to get a knife out of my pocket. Great knife, by the way, very good, very strong, even for its small size. And for its size, one of the most useful knives I have, easier to use than most other small knives. Anyway, that's a little mini review for you. But this knife comes in a bunch of different colors, green and pink and all of that. And wouldn't it be cool if they did that with this or with this? I think that'd be awesome. Also, it'd be awesome if they offered any one of these, the AK-47 or the Recon 1 or the Lawman or whatever, in an unfinished blade. That is, an uncoated blade, because the coating comes off pretty readily anyway. So you could add to the character that's already there. I'll grant that. But really, if you look at the Cold Steel lineup, there's a lot of options, and there are a lot of cool options. There are a lot of options that will appeal to all kinds of different people. Not all of them are ones that I'm into, but there's enough there that they should be interesting to many, many people. And finally, so we've got the Triad lock. Fantastic. I'm going to put it out there and say probably the best lock on the market today. You can argue with me if you want to, and I know there are other strong locks out there. I'm not saying other knives aren't strong. Two, you've got very practical, usable knives combined with a little bit of flair, a little bit of character. Yeah, they go over the top. Think of the extra large Espada. So that's another thing to really, really like about Cold Steel. Third thing to like about Cold Steel is the price. These knives perform exceptionally well, and they do it at a very, very good price. I know there are lots of strong locks and strong knives out there. Some of the strongest, I think of Striders. I think of Microtech, SOCOM. I think of, all of a sudden my brain is fried. ZT knives. Tons of super strong, heavy, overbuilt, awesome knives. And I think all of those are awesome. I would love to own every single one of them, and maybe someday I will. But you're not going to touch one of those things for less than $100. Meanwhile, you can buy almost, now I know about the Espada and I know about a couple others that are more expensive, but most cold steel knives are under $100. And so you're getting a knife, the Recon 1 is a great blade, cool in so many ways. And in fact, this is one of the knives that made me interested in folding knives. And you can buy this thing for, $70. Great deal, right? Like, that's awesome. Try to find a knife that's going to be as strong, as useful, as reliable for under $100. And I can tell you that I have other knives that are classed as hard use knives that are not nearly as well built, as strongly built, as durable as this knife is. So price is one other thing that you've got to give Cold Steel credit for. They come in at a very, very competitive price point. And so they allow a lot of people who maybe couldn't afford to buy, a $400 or $500 Strider, or a $300 0300, or a $400 or $500 Microtech or ProTech. You can buy an awesome knife that's going to almost, I know I have a couple of expensive knives. I know the feel. I know that level of precision and perfection. It's great. But is it really going to outperform this guy or this guy? These are pretty good knives. And for the price and what you're getting for performance, if I was a soldier, if I was a police officer, if I was a paramedic, I would not for a minute hesitate about carrying a Recon 1 and feeling totally confident in its abilities to do everything I need it to do. And so you come in with a knife that gives people what they need at a price point that is so affordable. And so that's the final thing that I've got to say I love about Cold Steel. They pay attention to price, and they're very reasonably priced, very accessible blades that everyone can use, everyone can enjoy. So that's my take on Cold Steel. Those are the reasons I really, really like the company. To end this video, let's quickly show you some of the great blades that are coming out of Cold Steel. There is the Voyager extra large, really awesome blade. Tons of fun, tons of cool factor. Maybe not as practical as some of the others, but for practicality, man, American Lawman, size, weight, just nails all of those EDC categories perfectly. You're hard pressed to find a better EDC knife than the American Lawman. I believe, for my personal preference, the Code 4 is a better everyday carry knife than the American Lawman. And so, considering how good this one, that should tell you how awesome this one is. Just classy, super tough, super durable, everything that you could want out of a folding knife and much more. Great blade, one of the favorites of my collection, and if you've watched my video on that, you know how much I appreciate it. I should do a follow-up video about this knife since I've had it for a while now. Recon 1, sort of a modern classic. If everyone who is interested in tactical knives has at least thought about, if not owns, a Recon 1. And even for some variety, here is the little guy, the Micro Recon 1. So lots of great blades, lots of great options, really cool company. And so what I got to say about this is Cold Steel, keep up the good work. You have a really valuable place in the knife industry, and I'm glad you're there. And I can't wait to look forward to what's coming up in 2015 from you guys and picking up some other Cold Steel knives that I want to fill out my collection. Talk to you later, YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the video. And go ahead and make your comments, negative and positive. I'd really like to hear what other people think about this company. And I'm going to send a copy to Cold Steel, so maybe they'd like to think about it too. Talk to you later.